Okay, hello everybody. Thanks for joining us in the fifth and last day of EGL Distance Learning sessions. We meet each day 2 times, and this is the last day, and this is the first part of the last day. Throughout these sessions, we have covered different topics. First, we learned about what is EGL, and then we seen how we can create EGL projects and what are the HUI widgets that are available. Then we seen how we can create web services, databases, and now we are moving towards how we can deploy our application on any application server. Before I move for this section, if you have any question regarding the previous topics, please go ahead. Any topic regarding web services, databases, HUI widgets or Dojo widgets, whatever it is, or any problem or difficulty that you are facing while you are doing your workshops. Few people send me an email and they tell me that they are facing problems. So I always like your emails, your feedback, and if you are facing problems, I will help you out. Okay. I'm just waiting for 1 minute more. Then we will start our topics. Today we will be covering deployment topic, and then there are some additional advanced topics that we will be covering in both of today's sections, today's classes. I hope you have worked on your web services and database examples in the workshop that I assigned you yesterday. Okay, let's start here. In the deployment, we are going to learn about how to configure our environment in order to deploy on any application server. Now, these are the topics that we are going to cover in this deployment section. We will be seeing what are the build files. As we have already learned about the build files, we will be seeing it through build files what are the parameters that we have to configure through which we will be deploying our HUI handlers, libraries, or services. Then we will, once we have configured our build descriptors and we have set down our handlers, libraries, and other settings, then we will deploy it on Tomcat server, or we will deploy it in standalone HTML. In deployment version of HTML, it will run as a standalone application. Here we have an outline or high-level overview of when we are going to create our projects. There are two different things. One part that is representing and showing our GUI of the page that is made with the help of HUI handler. And another part that is executing or having business logic that is known as services or libraries. And normally in our EGL page or in EGL project, we have HUI handlers and services or libraries. And then once we are done with our project development and we have debugged our application and it's running according to our expectations, now we are going to deploy it on any J2EE compliant application server like WebSphere, WebLogic, or even on Apache Tomcat. Then when we are deploying it, the HUI handlers data representing our interface, they will be converted and translated into HTML and JavaScript. In the part that is having our business logic, the services, libraries, they are being generated into Java code. Like SOAP services, Java SOAP services, and RESTful services, or any Java packages that will be like interacting with databases, or some additional functionality that we are doing through libraries or services. Here we have RBD rich UI deployment option before. These are the same things we will be seeing, like what are the build files. As we have talked about it, like through the build files, we set different properties, and based on the build files, the RBD runtime generate different artifacts. For example, in the build file, we have mentioned that, okay, we are going to generate JavaScript. Then our project will be generated into JavaScript. Same way, if we have set different properties, like we like to generate our EGL code into COBOL, then the properties that we have mentioned in the build file, they will be helpful for the runtime, and runtime will look into these properties, and it will generate the corresponding COBOL, Java, or JavaScript files. We will be seeing, like once we have set our deployment options and we have generated our handler libraries part, then what is the rich UI proxy that will work between the rich UI handler services part and on the server. Same way, we will be trying to know how we can secure our rich UI application. What are the considerations? What are the options through which we can secure our rich UI application? Okay, here, this is the first step here. Here, once you have developed your application, then you have to select your build descriptor. If you see here, we have highlighted two files. One is build descriptor, that is already opened here on the right side. We have another deployment descriptor. These both configuration files have major effect on the generation of our project. In the build descriptor, we specify build time properties, or the properties that relates to building of the project. For example, what is the system where this application is going to run? Either Windows, iSeries, Main Series, AIX, and we would be highlighting the properties like, for example, we are trying to call this database. We want to have this default date format, this default currency format, and so many properties are there that we have to set in the build deployment file that we call it as a build descriptor. The first one is this .egl BLD, build descriptor. And another file is EGL DD, EGL deployment descriptor. In the deployment descriptor, we specify there are some properties that relates to the deployment of our application. For example, if we are consuming or we are generating a web service, then we will be specifying those properties inside of the deployment descriptor. Same way, let's say we have 100 of rich UI handler. So through the deployment descriptor, we can say, okay, we don't need 100 all these handlers. we only need 10 handlers that will be deployed, that should be deployed. Rather than deploying whole or all rich UI handlers, here we can specify that we need this required number of handlers. Same way, it will highlight the list of resources. For example, what are the CSS file, images file, and what are the referenced libraries. For example, rich UI libraries, Dojo libraries, and their components that you are going to reference or that are being referenced inside of this application. So based on our need, for example, inside of Dojo libraries, there are so many components, and we have used only single button, Dojo button. So all other components are not useful for us. So why it should generate code for all those components, all those widgets? So through the deployment descriptor, we will uncheck those widgets, and this deployment descriptor will trigger, will notify the runtime that okay, you have to only generate the output for Dojo button, not for all widgets. I will be showing you how we can do these things. Okay, here we have high-level architecture or the folder structure that we normally have inside of our rich UI projects. Okay, now we are going to see the deployment descriptor, where we have the options through which we can configure the deployment options. Here first we are starting with the target project. We will be creating a project that is having a web project type. In this way, we have selected target project, then press next, and a wizard will appear, and we will be specifying, okay, this is the project name, and it's going to run on this application server, the target runtime. And it will create a project, and then it will deploy our rich UI project on this web project. So all our rich UI handlers will be converted into HTML and JavaScript. For example, we have used Dojo and rich UI library, so all those Dojo JavaScript files will be converted into, will be translated and transferred into this web project. And in the part that is web services part or database calling part, it will be translated and generated into Java inside of this web project. This is the same way once you have deployed your application, and then we have a rich UI proxy through which we are able to call our, for example, web services or database call. Inside of a rich UI application, we have a proxy enabled that facilitates communication between handler and the application server. Few points regarding the rich UI security. It's always best that whatever applications you are going to build in any language, either in Java, .NET, PHP, or in EGL or C language, C++, or Objective-C, whatever it is best that at the time of coding, when you are developing your application, you should be careful. You should be always try to check your code, try to test like white box testing and some other testing, so which you can see, okay, our code is 100% secure and there is no extra code or unnecessary code that is written inside of our application. For example, you make sure that the queries that you are going to use inside of your code are shielded from are secure, and there will not be any possibility for SQL injection. Same way, if you have used JavaScript, so you should be careful that there should not be cross-site scripting attacks that will use or that will exploit your JavaScript code, and it will be able to insert in your application. So we have to we have to make sure at the time when we are developing our application that all the code that is only related to the project is there, and we have to remove unnecessary codes, lines, and unnecessary libraries or scripts from our project. Now we have just read about basic information regarding the deployment steps and deployment background. Like what are the options and what are the things that we have to consider when we are going to deploy our application. Now here we are moving towards the steps that will help us to deploy our application. Now we are going to see how we can deploy on open source Tomcat server. Same way, open your deployment descriptor, then select your target project, click new, and then create a new dynamic web project. Once you are done with this, then select your project name, right click, and there will be an option deploy EGL project. Then it will deploy your project onto this newly created web project. If you see here on the left side, we are selecting the deploy EGL project option, and on the right side we have the deployed code inside of our web project. Here, if you can see, we have a single HTML file, and there are couple of folders inside of web content folder, like images folder, events folder, EGL folder, drag and drop folder, CSS folder, COM folder, properties folder, and validation folder. So if there is Dojo being used inside of this code, then there will be Dojo folders present as well. Now once you have done this, now you are free to deploy this project on your Tomcat server. Just select your HTML file, right click, run on server, then application server will start. And here you have your deployed version of your application. Now if you want to hand over your project to a third person to deploy on a production environment, just select your web project, right click, and there will be an option for export. Just export your project as a WAR file, because Tomcat normally accepts WAR file. But in case of WebSphere application server or WebLogic, JBoss, there would be like ER file, enterprise archive file. So in this way, you can either generate WAR file or ER file. Then a window will appear asking for the path where to save the WAR or ER file. Just save your WAR and ER file, and then hand over the WAR and ER file to a third person. Then she can deploy on the production server, and in this way you can have your application running on the production environment. Here we can see we have deployed our application on the production environment or on a different machine, and same way we can access application through the same URL. Okay, now I'm moving towards a different topic here, that how we can deploy application as a standalone application. Let's say we have a rich UI page, and that's doing some sort of functionality, and we want to deploy it as a standalone application rather than deploy on application server. We don't like to deploy on application server or have internet connection so that we can access the production machine or web application over the net. But instead, we want like a machine application that is available on our local operating system. So here we can deploy our rich UI application as a standalone HTML file. Same way inside of your deployment descriptor, here we have list of available rich UI handlers. As I told you that, let's say there are hundreds rich UI handlers and we only want to deploy 10 handlers. So inside of deployment descriptor, we have an option available through which we can set the desired rich UI handler that should be that only be deployed, not all deployment handlers. So here we are trying to highlight, okay, inside of your deployment descriptor, you have an option available. Its name is like rich UI handler. Here you can see the list of available rich UI handlers, and you can select your desired handler that should be deployed as a standalone HTML file or standalone HTML-based application. Once you are done with this, then same way it will be deployed in a web application. Then you select your HTML file, a single HTML file that has been generated for you, and then right click here and then export, and then a wizard will appear. Then select the file system and give the location where you want to save this file. And in this way, once you have saved your file, then double click on your HTML file that you have saved on your local machine, and it will appear in the browser. Okay, so this is all about deployment, how we can deploy our applications. Now I'm moving towards the demo part, where we will be seeing how we can deploy our application. If you have any question regarding the deployment, please go ahead. Okay. By the way, I have received a query from a person that he wants to, he was facing a problem when he was doing a workshop, when he was trying to call RPG, a web service workshop that I had mentioned in my last email, that there is workshop, a supplemental workshop through which you can further explore the EGL language. And in this, there are a couple of different workshop files, and in this file you have option to work on the calling a third-party web service. In this case, we are calling RPG service, a web service that is running over the RPG code on system I, and that is present on the IBM demo machine. I have a question like, is HTML deployment work for server-side language? For example, if we have Java or JSF code written in app. Well, in the HTML deployment option, we deploy our rich UI application, not Java generated or Java based application. As in these classes we are only covering the rich UI part. We are not covering the Java or web project part through which it generates JSF code. If I have time today, I will show you how you can create your JSF project or the Java project that is being generated from your EGL. Okay, let me first go through this file. Okay, this is the additional workshop. Here we are trying to show you, okay, we have a third-party web service that is running over the RPG code, and it's this is a web service running on IBM machine. Now here we have complete example. Here we are trying to call this web service, and then once this is done, here we can run it in our machine, and same way we will try to deploy this version. So let me. He asked me about it. I think he missed the code of the WSDL file. So the WSDL file code is already given in the notes section of this file. Let me show you here. I think this one is under the slide number 3. We have this WSDL file code. Okay, I think they have wrongly pasted this file, WSDL file multiple times. So it's again starting here. Maybe by mistakenly someone has put the code multiple times. Okay, anyway, you just copy this code and just save this file as your inside of your text editor. You paste this code and save with any name. I have saved this file with this name called ROGP RPG mortized.WSDL file. Okay. So this is the URL. If you can see, this is the URL where this web service is running. It's running on iCDSD.demos.ibm.com. Okay. So I have saved this file. I have already this file in my application code. Now I am going to quickly create a new project here. The 5 HY project. So in this way we have another example on web services. In same way we will try to deploy this example on the Tomcat. So in this way we can have multiple experience or multiple expo. Okay, I'm just creating a folder is WSDL. You can create anyone. It's up to you. Inside of WSDL, I'm just copying my file. This one. Same way, right click, select the file, WSDL file, right click, and web services. Paste with Web Services Explorer, so that we can make sure, okay, either this web service is running fine or it's not running. Maybe the server that is hosting this WSDL file is not responding. So in this way we can make sure, okay, it's fine. Now we can generate our code and we can play with it. This web service has only a single function here, and it's asking for 3 parameters: amount and interest rate. Any amount you can give it here, in terms in years, 25 years. Just press go and let's see what's the result. Okay, we have this result. If you see, these are the 3 input parameters, and this is the return amount. So this service is running fine. It's working fine. Now I'm going to use this service here. Same way, select your service, right click here, select this EGL services option, then create EGL client interface. Then wizard will appear, press next, next, and finish. Then it will generate multiple classes or packages based on the type of the WSDL. In our case, it has generated on a single package, a single file. This is the interface name, and this is the function name that is available inside of our web service, and it's accepting 3 parameters: loan amount, interest rate, and terms in years, and they have a string type. And then it's returning a single string amount. Okay, once we are done with this, now we are going to create the UI handler where we would like to call the service. Give it any name. folder package that will hold our HUI handler. Now I'm going back here. I will like to copy the same handler file so that I can show you that some of the slides have code available. Okay, if you see here on the third slide we have visual code. On the fourth slide we have some just generated interface code as well. This is a service code example. This is not useful for our case. Now on the sixth slide we have code. I am copying the same handler. I don't like to create a different handler. I would like to utilize the code that is already available to me. Call RPG web service. This is the name of my handler. It's up to me. I can give it any name. I can say it. Okay. This is RPG web service. This is the title for my HUI handler. Once you are done, inside of the code, remove this code and paste the code that we have just copied from the slide. I think it's not copied. Let me copy it again here. Copy this here. Sometimes it's not working here, so I have to manually recopy again here. Now I think this way it will come here. Now here we have the code. Control-Shift-F. Control-Shift-F will format the code so that it will be more readable to you. Okay. First press Control-Shift-O. Okay. Let me first remove the error. I'm just removing this package handler because we have placed our code inside of our R package. See, this is my folder name. Okay, and we have a different name for our handler called RPGW service. Okay, the file name and the handler must match. Once you are done this, save the file, or you can press Control-Shift-O. Okay. Now in this way it has imported the correct files, correct packages, and in this way you can get rid of the error. Okay. Once our code is clear, there are no error messages. Now press Control-Shift-F to format your code. If you see here, we have formatted code. Now it's much more readable. Okay, here we have just these are the widgets that are representing our UI, and this event handler, this is calling this web service. Here it's calling its function, supplying 3 parameters, and then returning to this result in on exception. On the result, it's showing the result in this field, and on the exception, it's showing exception on the console, at the bottom of the page. Okay, now once we are done, click the preview. Let's see what will happen. Okay, here a good point to highlight you. If you see here, it's saying call RPG-W service indirectly refers to missing CSS file. If you see, this is a CSS file name because we have created a different project. So we have this project and by default created this file, a CSS file name. So I'm going to rename this one, and so that it can point to the correct CSS file. Okay. File. Let's save. Now preview. Refresh the page. Now everything is clear. Now let me give any amount here. Interest rate 1.3, let's say, and terms of here. Now click calculate payment. If you see again, a dialog box will appear. It's asking for which type of version you want to call, either the source version of this web service or the deployed version. In our case, we know that this web service is already deployed. It's running on the third party end, so we will be use deployment version. In same way, if you don't like to see this pop-up coming again and again, you can remember this selection option, and don't ask me again. Now press OK. Now let's see. Okay, here we have result. Instantly it fetched the result from the IBM i6 machine. Let me change some value here.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
Okay, we have another values. So in this way we can see this. Okay. Now I'm going to deploy this application on my Tomcat. So same way, what we have to follow. Just remember, I'm just closing these files. Here we have two deployment files. One is build descriptor. I just double clicked on this. This is the build descriptor. Here we have some properties already set. If I uncheck this option, if you can see here, we have a big list of properties that we can configure based on our need, based on our environment, based on the resources that we are going to use in our application. Now we don't need this one. I need the another build file. This is .egl dd, EGL deployment descriptor. Double click on here. If you see here, we have different tabs at the bottom. On the first overview tab, we are specifying the deployment deployment target. Here we have to specify the web project inside of which we want to deploy this application. Click new. Now create any name, for example, RPG5 RPG web service demo. Okay, I want to run it on my Tomcat, not on WebSphere. Just select Tomcat, next, and finish. If you see here, it has created a project inside of my environment with the same name. It's a web project. Okay. Now it is generated. Now let me show you what are the default files that are present inside of this project. Okay, here we have nothing because still we have not deployed. We have just configured. Okay, now let me give you some overview of this deployment descriptor before I directly deploy this one. Okay, on this first overview page, we normally set this deployment target option. If you have multiple rich UI handler, then here you can see multiple rich UI handler and the corresponding HTML file that will be generated against them. Same way, there are some other services that which version of SOAP protocol that you want to call in. Same way, if you have used a web service, then service binding, we have detail for this RPG amortize is using Visual protocol and so on. This is the first overview tab option. Now going on the rich UI deployment option, here we have same way listing the deploy all rich UI handler. Here we can select all or the selected one. Okay, here we have, if we have multilingual support, we can select either other language like Arabic, French or German here. So the HTML file, the file that will be generated, it will be generated in that standard version. By default, the file that is going to generate it, it will be having this postfix with this name eng_us. I will show you this postfix here. On the third tab, we have, for example, we are creating a service, web service inside of this project, then its detail will be here. In this case, we are not creating, so it's blank. On the fourth service binding tab, we have a service here. Definitely we are calling a service. Its name is call RPG amortize using Visual Protocol. On the right side, we have SOAP service binding, name of the service, interface name. This is the package name inside where this interface exists. And the visual location, port, and some other information. Same way on the protocol, if there are some other protocols and imports, if you want to import multiple deployment descriptor inside of this file, you can import. Maybe one deployment descriptor have another settings, other deployment descriptor have some other settings, and both are different, generating different things. Same way at the last tab is resources. This is one of the important tab. Here you can check. Okay, let's say we have used only Dojo button here. So I would be selecting only my Dojo button. So only Dojo button corresponding JavaScript will be generated. Not all components or widgets JavaScript to be generated. So I don't like other components. Their JavaScript should be generated. I only need one button JavaScript. So in this way I can select. In this way we are optimizing. So this is the best method to optimize your application. Rather than having all JavaScript files, loading all files in the browser, it will load the corresponding component file in the browser. Okay, same way you can do for the same rich UI widgets. Okay. Same way inside of this project, if you have resources, it lists down all resources here. The number of CSS files, icon files, if there's images folder, images will be here. So now this is the overview about the deployment descriptor. Now we have only set this target project. Now let me go back and now let's generate this. Select your rich UI project, right click, and you will find an option, deploy EGL project. Now once you click this one, based on the project that we have mentioned inside of our deployment descriptor, it will generate the code in the corresponding web project that we have mentioned in our deployment descriptor. If you see here, this is our web project. Now it's generating code here. If you see, different folders, files are being generated. Inside of web content, we have like COM folder, CSS folder, digit folder, Dojo X folder, and save web. They have their resources there. Okay, anyway. Okay, here we have a single HTML file because we have single rich UI handler. This is the same name of our project called RPG Web Service / and this is the postfix of the language. If you see here, we have this postfix. If you see on the right side, we have this postfix. We have English postfix. That's why this file has this postfix. If they are multilingual, then you can select multiple lingual, and then using the properties file you can supply your different language strings, like in Arabic string or French strings, and those strings are the values will be displayed on your widgets inside of your code, inside of your widgets or inside of your labels. Okay, now we are done with this. Now I'm going to run this on my Tomcat. Right click this HTML file, this generated file, run on server. So wizard will appear. I'm selecting Tomcat, finish. Now it will execute the Tomcat. It will run in the browser. Let me see if there is question. I will return back to the code. Let me see if there are questions. Would you please explain? There is a question like, would you please explain the configure in EGL runtime data source in the overview of deployment descriptor? Okay, let me go back to my environment. Okay, first let me complete this one. Here we have ran our deployed application. Now it's running on the Tomcat server inside of this browser. Now I can supply any values here. It's up to me. I can supply any values. For example, 25. Now press calculate amount and see how fast it is. Here we have results. Same way. Now I'm going to modify this values. Calculate payment. We have modified one. So in this way we can create and we can deploy our services, our applications on the server. Okay. Now I'm going back to your question. It was about, let me read it again. Configure an EGL runtime data source in the overview of deployment descriptor. I'm trying to locate in the overview. In the overview, we don't have like, we have in the overview we have this deployment target. Inside of the target, I think, oh, maybe you are talking about this one. Let me show you. If here we have a note like, if any program, services, libraries access the database, you must configure the runtime data source of the target project. So here, through this option, configure an EGL runtime data source, it will configure the corresponding data source for our application. Let me click here. If you see, our properties view of this project will appear. Here we have EGL runtime data source option selected. Now here, if I have a database connection, now from this option load values from a data tools connection, I can select any existing connection or my desired connection here. For example, I am using Derby in this project. Okay, then I will be selecting Derby here. Or even I can create a new connection here. Same way, providing host ID, port, user ID, password, and whatever, and providing the correct driver file. So in this way, we are configuring a database that our application is going to use this database. In this way, the corresponding database runtime information will be imported, will be generated in the new deployment project. Okay, I hope it will be clear to you now. Now let me go back to our slides and see. Okay. Okay, I have any other question? Please go ahead. I have 10 minutes remaining. I will try to cover another topic. It's a bit advanced topic where we will be seeing how we can have some more dynamic functionality available inside of our rich UI handlers. Okay, here we are going to learn about like rich UI inter-program communication. For example, we have multiple rich UI handlers, maybe 10 or 20. How we can trigger one handler that okay on handler 1 or handler ABC, we have changed some value. There is an event occurred on page 1 or handler 1. Now there is mechanism through which we can notify multiple handlers or the desired handler that okay, we have something been changed on so and so handler. Now you have to do the corresponding action. Okay, same way we will be going to learn about how we can use external JavaScript. For example, I have a code. I have a custom JavaScript already written with me that has some functionality, and I want to use that custom JavaScript inside of my EGL rich UI. So how I can call my existing JavaScript. Third topic, we will be trying to cover model view controller, and we will be learning about the browser history, how we can maintain the browser history, and how we can access the browser history, and what are the things that we can do with browser history. And at the last, we will be learning about the best practices. We are starting with the inter-rich UI communication. Here we have a concept of info bus. Here a high level an overview and our example. Let's say we have application, and application is using multiple rich UI handlers, and one rich UI handler have multiple rich UI widgets, and each widget is calling another handler or another widget. So there is a complex architecture. There is complex relationship between different handlers, different widgets, different libraries, external files, and so on. So how we can notify each other, how we can have communication between these different handlers or widgets. As we are already familiar with about the rich UI handler and widgets, that each of the rich UI handlers and widgets have some properties and have some behavior or events through which we can modify or control their behaviors. Like they have certain properties like font property, background color, borders, class properties through which we can supply custom CSS properties, and there are so many other properties. Same in the behaviors, we have different types of events like on click, on mouse hovering, focus gain, focus lost, and some other events. So each rich UI handler and widgets have both things like properties and behaviors. Now we have three types of things or three types of calls that we can like trigger between handlers or widgets. For example, there is a direct call. In the direct call, for example, I have selected the row or I have clicked on a, and based on the button click, the corresponding event will be triggered, and inside of the trigger, I'm going to modify some properties of any widget. So in this way, we are having a direct call between widget to widget or handler to widget and some others. Or same way we can have delegates, a custom functions that we learned about in our previous classes, and in the yesterday class in the debugging section we also seen the delegates, where we delegates are custom functions that we apply for the validation of our values. For example, in the previous class in the debugging section, we seen that we were validating the email addresses. Automatically, there were some delegates that were used to validate the email address. Either they are in the proper format or not in the proper format. So, through the delegates, we can have communication between widgets or handlers. So, this was the second type, and we have third type that we are going to know in detail right now. The third type is infobus. For example, here we are not having any tight relationship or any tight coupling. We have some sort of loosely coupled communication. Like they are not always listening to each other. They are not like waiting for another handler to modify or do some action. Whenever the action has been occurred or has been happened, the corresponding listener will be triggered. The corresponding waiting object will be notified. In the direct call, here we have an example. For example, I am clicking in the row, and once I have clicked in the corresponding event, I can set any property of this grade or any other widget. Here we have code example. Now we are going to infobus. Delegates we have already seen and covered how we can create delegates and how we can see how they are being called. Now we are going to learn about the infobus. It's a library provided by the EGL runtime that makes a publish and subscribe mechanism available. For example, one application or one code or widget is listening or subscribing for a certain action, and there is a publisher that will publish the action or that will publish the event or data. So the subscriber who has subscribed for that event or that data, they will be notified when publisher is publishing the new data or anything. If you see here in this code example, we have written infobus.subscribe. Infobus is the library name, and .subscribe is the function name, and we are providing two parameters. The first parameter is the event name, event ID. This ID should be same or must be same for the publisher. Both publisher and subscriber must use the same event ID. On the subscriber, we have first given a com.ibm.egl.rui.sample.selection clicked. This whole string is the event ID. And the second parameter is section clicked. This is the event function name that will be called once this event has been occurred, or this subscriber is listening something from the publisher. Okay. Same way at the bottom, if you see, we have an example of the publish. Infobus.publish, providing same two parameters, event ID, com.ibm.egl.rui.samples.section activated. So this is a long event ID. You can give it any ID, like ABC. It's event ID. It's up to me. I can write any event ID. But subscriber and publisher both have the same ID. Based on the ID, they can identify each other, and they are able to pass data to each other. Okay. In the publish, we have first event ID, and second is the function name that will be called on that will be the data. That will be the information that is going to be transferred to the subscriber. Okay. Here we have a high-level overview. Same way on the infobus.subscribe, we are specifying an event ID, then a function name that will be called when something has been published by the publisher. Same way on the publish side, we have a unique event ID, the same event ID and variable value or some data or some string or some message that we want to send to all those subscribers. So this variable name or data or message will be sent to all those subscribers based on the same unique event ID. Okay, here we have an example. Here we have a handler, embedded handler. In the start function, we are subscribing for my infobus message. This is the event ID, and then we have show publish function name. At the bottom of this this function, we have definition of this show publish function. If you see, it has two parameters. One is event name, its type is a string, and another is data, and its type is any. Because it can data can be integer, data can be a string or numeric or boolean or array, whatever. So any data that is being published by the publisher, it will be able to receive it. It will be able to get it. So in this way, we are subscribing for my infobus message, and once data has been received, show publish function will be called. Okay, at the bottom, let's see how publisher is publishing data. In the infobus test handler, we have a button, my button. Its name is publish the event, and on the on click of this button here, we are publishing some data. Infobus.publish, in the parenthesis, we are giving the same event ID, the same ID that this subscriber is using. On against this event ID, our subscriber is listening for, they are waiting for the call. So we have given the same ID here, and then in the quotation we are supplying some string message. So when I am going to click this function, this event will be called, and it will publish this string to all those subscribers that are waiting for this event ID, and automatically they will receive this data that is being transferred by this publisher. and inside of this show publish function, it will receive data in the data any format, in data as any format. So in this way, we are making a call between two different handlers. Subscriber can be multiple at a time, but publisher can be a single one. Because, but if you are using different IDs, then definitely you can use multiple publishers. For example, event ID 1 or event ID 2, event ID 3. So in this way, you can have multiple publishers. Same way, you can have multiple subscribers. But both must be using the same ID, so that in this way the communication mechanism will work. Okay, here we are quickly going to see the details of different functions that we are having inside of Infobus library. We have a subscribe function that accepts two parameters: the event name and the a reference function that will be called when it's going to receive the data from publisher. We have another function, unsubscribe. Infobus.unsubscribe. It will accept a parameter, the value of type any, that is returned from the subscribe. When you are subscribing, it's returning some value. So you will be providing any data to this unsubscribe. So based on that specific data, it will unsubscribe from the current event. The same way we have published, it accepts two parameters. One is event name and the second is your data that you want to send to your subscribers. Same way you can, here we have some example here. For example, you want to subscribe for multiple events, or you want to publish for multiple events. For both things you can use asterisk. For example, as we have seen, we have an event with similar IDs. For example, here we have like com.mycompany.updates.sales.new.employee. And same way we have com.mycompany.update.marketing.new.employee, and same way we have third publisher com.mycompany.update.outreach.new.employee. So here we can use single asterisk or double asterisk to denote the corresponding event. It will behave as a placeholder. If you see here, we have an example. For example, com.mycompany.update.sales and dot asterisk asterisk. com.mycompany.update.sales dot asterisk asterisk. So all those events that are starting with this string com.mycompany.update.sales, and they have different remaining characters or different name for this event. By using this asterisk, we can reach to all those characters, all those missing names or labels. So in this way we can subscribe or publish multiple events. Okay, now we have another topic is calling external JavaScript part. So I am going to close this class at this point. In the second part of today's class, we will be learning about how we can call external JavaScript. And then we will be seeing how we can create MVC pattern or MVC based applications inside of our EGL, and we will be learning about browser history and some best practices tips. Okay, any question regarding these points, whatever we have covered, deployment or infobus, before I finish my class? Any question, please? Okay. Okay, thank you very much for your time. We will meet after 1 hour and 50 minutes. Okay. Thanks. Take care. Bye.